All right. Welcome to the Unblocked podcast, episode number one. Um, while I still figure out how this whole thing is going to work, uh, man, this is so awkward. I got to start again. I got to at least get in a bit of a flow for us to get started
I
here.
think you should keep it in. I know it's up to you, but hey, just
You
this
know
is how
what?
they're going to be. And if you get this out of the way, that's it's just part of this is how you learn. You're never going to have a perfect start.
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that. So let's go with it. So for listeners, I'm talking to my good friend here, Andrew Joakim, who I'll let you know a little bit about how we know each other. But Andrew and I share a lot of interests when it comes to psychology and self-development and curiosity about life in general. But maybe I'll let you, Andrew, tell a little bit about the context that I first reached out to you in, how we got to know each other, what you were up to at that time. I think that was about 8 years ago.
Cool. Yeah, I can't remember if I think it was in 2018. It might have even been 2017, but it was around that time. I had a YouTube channel called Sorting Myself Out, and at that time, I was in Agassiz, British Columbia, which is not too far away from. Oh, I don't know if I should mention where Jesse is. I won't say, but Jesse lives somewhere nearby in the area. So hope I didn't just dox you there.
Oh, good.
So he reached out and we met up, and we've had a continuing friendship from that time. And that YouTube channel I had was I was trying to make some improvements in my life. That was right around the time that Jordan Peterson was first becoming popular from his university lectures. That's mainly what I watched him for at the time, with his couple of series that he had. And then so the videos I had were trying to put into practice um, some of the advice that he was giving. Uh, I think that's how we first, and that's when Justin and I first started meeting. That's what we mainly talked about, and then reached into other areas as well.
Yeah, there was that first few videos you made. Some of them were hilarious remixes of Jordan Peterson saying absurd things, and then you started the sorting myself out thread, and it struck me how much you were, willing to share a lot of vulnerable stuff about what you were trying to work out in yourself. And on the one hand, you tried to make it something where you were like offering value to an audience, and on the other hand, you'd step back and just be really real about, the problems you're trying to solve before they're necessarily solved. And yeah, I thought that was really intriguing. So when I found out that you lived not too far, it just seemed like it made sense to reach out. Um, so a lot's evolved since then. And do you have anything that you would say has surprised you most about uh, like how your vision of life has unfolded since that project?
Oh, in so many ways. But I think what you and I have talked about the last few times that we've met, a lot of the discussion has been around content creation, because I know it's something you've had many different forms. This is your podcast, but you've been experimenting with many different things. And same for myself, I've tried over the years. So with that channel, I eventually stepped away from it and handed it over to someone else. And it's not, there hasn't been any videos in a long time, but for myself, I've tried many different uh, channels because I've been interested in creating. And part of the reason of why I stopped that channel was I found it difficult to find a right balance between there's just so many things that can come along with being a content creator. Maybe there's a better word for, it seems like that's so overused, content creator or influencer or someone who's just putting out videos or whatever it may be. I guess what I've seen differently in this time is I've found it difficult to find the right approach. And I think that's what's kept me back for so many years. I've wanted to have a creative outlet, but there's just some sort of trickiness around being authentic or being a character or truly being able to stand behind what you're doing without having this feeling of using shady tactics that certain creators can use to just get attention. Because at the end of the day, there is an element of wanting to earn money. I think we could both agree that we want to be able to produce something that we're proud of and that we're sharing a part of ourselves and being creative, but also we would like to be able to earn a living from it, not just make money. I think that's where it can be difficult in that you can look at some people who are doing it only to make money, and then you can see some of the tactics that they are using. And so that's what I've been trying to find is how can I have a way of using some of those tactics in order to gain traction, but not feel guilty about it. So I know I've said quite a bit there, and I don't know if any of that made sense.
Yeah, well, I've appreciated those recent talks about where that fine line is and what the what's the structure and what's the motive in producing something that we would call content that's of genuine value in the creation process itself should be genuinely fulfilling for us. And then the idea would be if it's for an audience that it's genuinely of value to them. Um, and yeah, you see the internet being overtaken by basically just whatever will get attention, right? And people know that attention is monetizable. So you can build an audience based on just getting people's dopamine kind of hooked on whatever it is. And sometimes that's just really garbage content, or sometimes it's like, yeah, people are really good at sales and marketing and really good at persuading people that they have a solution to their problems and, click now and pay all this money. And that can easily underdeliver. And especially in this age of the internet where it's like more unregulated than ever in a way, and people can tell you anything about what they're offering. Um, and then, there's also that balance between, okay, so you're supposed to offer something of value. Do you want it to be educational or do you want it to be entertaining or both? And how do you approach that? So yeah, I want to know more about what you think uh, about this because, more and more kids now want to grow up to be social media influencers or content creators. And they're not necessarily asking the questions that you're asking right now about what that actually means for value exchange and yeah, what's legitimate about it. And so I'm trying to figure that out too, right? I'm a woodworker and I've tried to monetize my woodworking business, and I'm writing my newsletter and I'm talking to people about unblocking themselves creatively, building art community around myself, and all of that's sort of intrinsically valuable. But of course, yes, I want to make and earn a living. Um, and I know that I could like create a bunch of faceless accounts that just like harvest attention and somehow have some call to action where people pay me money. But like you made that distinction, you want to earn a living. You don't just want to make money or get customers, and especially when you're doing it under your own
So
name.
in so when we think of these children who now a majority of them, when you ask them what they want to do when they grow up, that they say they want to be an influencer or a YouTuber and earn a living in that way. I think that I remember being a child and not understanding what driving is. It's something that your parents would do or your caretakers would do to get you around, and you know what a vehicle is, and you know that you're going to do it one day when you're older, but you really don't understand it. And I think I remember having lots of dreams as a child of this. That was my most anxiety-inducing dream, would be that all of a sudden I found myself in control of this vehicle and just not knowing what to do. and that's a symbol of adulthood. So these children, when they have this understanding of the future and of what they'll be doing, they don't really understand what it takes to drive and what it's going to look like. And I think that they might just think, well, they want, I don't know, 1 million subscribers, or they want this large audience. And you asked me earlier how my view has changed, and I'm realizing now that looking back, I would have thought that I wanted a large audience, the bigger the better. That I remember getting the first 1,000 subscribers, and that felt great. And then I wanted 10,000. I can't remember what it got up to, maybe 30,000. But the next goal was to have 100,000. Where now I'm realizing that it's not about a number. 'Cause if I think of this ideal future where, let's say, technology progresses and we get to this point where we don't have to do certain grueling jobs, or even a large portion of our sort of blue collar or white collar jobs, whatever type of jobs, if they get replaced and we're in this position where we have all of this free time. I think if entertainment was to change, it would change from what it was when we were growing up, where there's mainly television and only a few shows that have this large audience, where it's going to be reversed, where there's, instead of having only a few shows that are on a few channels getting millions and millions of views, there'll be millions and millions of channels that are getting only a few views. And th that's what I would focus on now, is not aiming to get a certain number, but just being proud of the work that I'm doing, and making those videos in a way that are as helpful as possible to a smaller number of people, rather than trying to make a video that's as entertaining for aiming to get millions of people.
Yeah.
And if you did that in a way that those videos were truly helpful, and that the people who were watching were contributing, whether it's with their attention, or whether you're selling a course or selling something, or they're just part of a Patreon, whatever the model is, I think that would be a way where you wouldn't feel wrong, that you'd feel proud, that you'd feel that you're truly earning a living. I think that's why so many uh, YouTubers, or however content creators, can feel that sense of burnout or imposter syndrome, is because they realize they're not really providing something that they're proud of, or that is worth the money that they get. A lot of people can just get into, it's like winning the jackpot of getting into an algorithm, and all of a sudden you can be this millionaire, and it just so happen, and you just keep pushing out things in the same format, and might not necessarily actually be proud of what you're doing. So hopefully that makes sense of how I would explain that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right from the start with your dream, it got me thinking of a few things, but um, one is the topic of dreams, which I think we'll go to a bit because that's been a big topic for you. But also this dream about steering a vehicle as a child is very interesting to me because as a child, you're a developing ego, right? You have a developing ego, identity, sense of, and a lot of what the ego is about a sense of agency, right? A controller, like there's a being in you that's steering the ship. And of course, we could get into topics like cybernetics, which basically means like the helmsman or to steer, right? Um, and psycho-cybernetics was impactful for me early on in regard to understanding how you can change yourself through active visualization. Um, and so there's this topic that's coming to mind. The fundamental topic is agency and um, the ability to make your life uh, to make of your life what you wish, or to make something meaningful and fulfilling of it. Um, and as children, we're mostly conditioned beings, right? We're socially conditioned and sort of told what we're supposed to value and what we are or are not allowed to create. and how we're allowed to express ourselves. So it makes me think that's a very interesting transition where as a child, yeah, you don't know how to drive a car, but even as adults, our lives are that car that we still don't really know how to drive, and we still don't really have, I mean, we can develop different amounts of agency, right? And some people develop more of it than others. So that's what's coming to mind as most interesting about your thoughts on um, producing something that you're proud of and something that's actually meaningful, and not getting caught up in those metrics of like how much attention it's getting with numbers of people. Um, because yeah, like Tim Ferriss or someone, or you referenced someone else, someone has the thing, 1,000 true fans. If you have 1,000 true fans who really resonate with what you're doing, that's highly monetizable. You don't need a million people watching everything you do. Um, so there's, yeah,
So,
there's,
oh, sorry to interrupt. I'll also just say for me, this, I know this is your first podcast, but this is my first one in a long time. And one part that's tricky in podcasting, I found myself each time that I'm talking, I'm like really getting out on a limb, and it's like, okay, how do I wrap this up? And I just say, oh, I don't know if that makes sense. So it's awkward for me. And so I don't mean to interrupt you. And also we're doing this over internet. It's different than being in person. So I'm sure we'll both feel comfortable with interrupting, and you can cut me off at any time if I'm going on for too long. But what I
right.
was going to say is that with content creation, or putting things out, that we both have discussed how we feel stuck of wanting to start, and because we don't, it feels like you want to have the perfect product and thing planned first before you put it out, and that there's that initial awkwardness. And also in the same way in which I've said that I want to get to this place where I'm not worried how big the audience is, at the same time you know that you need those first initial clicks or watch time or click through rate or the perfect thumbnail. That's where it can get tricky, in that you know you need to sort of play the game and use these tactics in order to get the ball rolling. But that's the part I'm still trying to figure out, is how do we use those tactics without, it's like there's this fine line, there's this balance you need to find. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how can I use those tactics as a scaffolding? Like, is it a matter of scaffolding and getting to a certain point and saying, okay, I don't need to use those tactics anymore, or
Um,
do you do it right from the beginning?
that's part of why I'm wanting to dive into agency a little bit. It's been a topic I've seen come up a lot lately on social media. And at first it was through Huberman Lab. Andrew Huberman had Dr. Paul Conti on, and they talked for like 12 hours on several podcasts about mental health. And his thing was that the main two pillars of mental health are agency and gratitude. And that if you cultivate agency and gratitude, you get in touch with your generative drive, which is basically your actual um, energized ability to reshape reality in a positive way. So agency is just the very sense of having the control over reality to some extent, the ability to make decisions, right? Just that your decisions can come from an internal place and not external. So to me, it's like a lot of sales and marketing. It to be kind of a little bit hard on it. It preys on people's lack of agency, right? It preys on their pain points, because it's like, here's these problems you have in your life, you can't solve them, right? So here's this out external thing that could help you with that, and then if it's persuasive enough, people want to buy that thing, thinking, well, that's going to help me solve these problems. And the thing is, it might, right? Like there's a lot of valuable stuff that will give you more perspective, whether it's a physical product or someone teaching you something. Um, but yeah, can you utilize some of those same tactics to, you know, get someone? to see you as someone who can help them solve some of those problems or add value to their life in some way, um, but not see it as something that ultimately isn't within their control to continue creating without you. Like, and I mean, again, it's like you want to capture attention, so you want your audience to stay and keep watching more of your stuff, right? So that's where I think, for one thing, you only ever have to be a little bit ahead of anyone in an area to educate them. And there's always the potential for entertainment. So I think if you're able to give something to people that actually adds agency to their life rather than kind of affirming the lack of agency and then therefore their need to buy whatever you have, it's more like maybe you can activate a higher level of consciousness or speak to a higher level of consciousness where it's people who know, they're solution aware, they're not just problem aware, and so then they want to, uh, through their own sense of agency, they want to spend that money to get that value, but it's not because they're stuck in such a low point where they'll pay anything to someone who's persuasive enough. It's more like they genuinely see value. Maybe you've already given them a lot of free value, and then they see what else you have to offer, and through their own, um, kind of higher level awareness of what they actually want to achieve, they would then purchase what you are offering because they genuinely see it as doing that. But that's the main key, I guess, is determining what do you want to offer um, that really adds to people's lives. And then you don't even have to, I mean, things that if you know it really adds to people's lives, um, you don't have to resort purely to tactics because people stick around for real value, right? So that's my thoughts on that. But your whole thing has sort of been about, as far as I think your whole thing has sort of been about developing agency since sorting myself out. Um, so how is your sense of, um, what it takes or how you go about developing agency to sort yourself out? How has that evolved?
Okay, I'm gonna try to build to that. I just want to touch back on the whole advertising and finding the right balance. So let's see
Mm-hmm.
if I can connect this all together. Okay, if I have a product that I'm truly proud of and I believe that it's helpful and I have it set at a fair price and I'm not trying to take advantage of anyone. If I went into a shopping mall in Chilliwack of that barely gets any, let's say it gets, I don't know, 400 customers going through in a day, and I set up in a kiosk in the corner, and I tell myself I don't want to use any shady advertising tactics, so I don't even put up a sign. I'm just set up in the corner. No one's going to come by. No one's going to even have the opportunity to buy it. So little by little, I could say, okay, well, I can at least have a sign, but I'm not going to follow the trappings of advertising where they do research and say, okay, this text is going to be more attention grabbing. But I at least say, okay, I'm going to have a sign. And then I agree to that. And I'm going to say, okay, I don't want to try to influence anyone. So I'm just going to simply say what this thing is. But then it's like you're going to keep whittling down to things you could agree to doing, where at the complete opposite end of the spectrum is some carnival attorney. I don't even know if that's politically correct to say, but someone who's just going
Hey, we
through
just elected
town.
that guy in Canada. You're not allowed to call him that.
Yeah, exactly. So on the opposite end of the spectrum is someone who's just going through town and they know everything that they can say to someone to manipulate them into playing a game where they know it's rigged and they don't even have a fair chance of getting something that you've sold them this illusion that they're paying something for a fair shot at getting something back. So that's what I'm trying to find is where can I find that sweet spot where I'm gaining the attention of people to look at something that I'm offering because I think it will actually be helpful to them and is being sold at a fair price. So as far as agency, finding that it's something I still struggle with, is finding the right balance between there's times where you can set a schedule for yourself and things you want to do and follow it and it feels good versus not having any plan and hoping things just happen. That's difficult. And so when it comes to putting it together with your life of trying to create something that you're putting out online, what you and I have talked about before is this idea of what if you were to win the lottery $77 million and you could just do as you wanted and could put all of your time into creating something and not having any pressure of paying bills or a place to live, all these things. And then we explored the idea where, okay, is there a way where you could just live the life and do the things that you wanted to do and capture it in such a way in which you felt guaranteed that you would make those $1 million as of having won the lottery? Like, could you live your life as if you were on a game show, like the show Alone, where these contestants, they push themselves beyond their physical and mental boundaries because they know that if they can do something for 100 days or whatever it is, that they'll win 1 million or 500,000. So could we trick ourselves in that same way into, I don't know if it's making sense, but that's how I'm trying to find that, like merge these things together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it makes me think because I've analyzed myself a little bit to ask what different levels of things motivate me. And there's things that are, noble and for the higher good and that sound real nice, make me seem if I say them, I sound like a great guy. And then there's other things like I want so and so to know they were wrong about me, and I want these people to see, whatever it is. There's more like shallow, or I want to have a bunch of money, so that I can do the things I want, or that I can look cool to other people. And like, yeah, some of that exists in me, even though I might think like, oh, you shouldn't just want to be cool in the eyes of others. That's not the greatest motive. But no, that's there. So why not then utilize that sometimes? Like a silly example might be, oh, I don't feel like cleaning my house, but maybe if I'm going to invite some people over soon, then I'll go to that extra mile to clean my house. And it's like, well, Jesse, that's come on. Does it matter? It only matters to you what other people think of. Don't you want the clean house? Like, yeah, but if I can utilize the like lower level motivation to still do the higher level thing, maybe that's worthwhile. So maybe that's the same for marketing to other people. Sometimes you actually have to market to that lower level desire, especially if that's where they're at, like they're just in coping, needing to get out of coping. Um, and it's like, they're really just thinking like, oh, I need better social connections, I need more money. But in reality, they need like deeper self-development, or they maybe need to find some deeper sense of peace internally, and that's going to be their true wealth. But maybe they first had to be sold on getting money. uh, so I think maybe that's part of it, is trying to offer to people what you can offer them where they're at. You're reaching them where they're at, but ultimately what you really want to offer is probably even of greater value than what might have first persuaded them. So then it's sort of like,
So,
well, you
oh,
have a
sorry,
kid
no, go
now,
ahead.
you have a son now, you're a father, and I wonder if you've thought much about this sort of thing when it comes to being a father. Like, there's things you're going to be explaining. You explain things to children in one way that benefits them, and as they get older, it's explained in another way. And I feel like in a lot of my own personal development path, people have had to tell me things that, higher level things didn't register. They had to reach me at that sort of level of consciousness I was at. And then that opens the
Oh, I
door.
see.
So it's like they benefited
Right.
me by not telling me or just trying to sell me on like the truly valuable thing.
Oh, okay. So is there a way where, okay. Because yeah, like I've said, that's part of my block is just finding the right way of putting something across to be able to feel good about it. So I wonder, like what, like if you and I, if we see people out there and we think that we might not agree with what they're doing or that they're using those shady tactics, are you saying that if they know that ultimately that they want to get people to a certain place, that it's like telling a child that they should be aware of a porcupine without, telling them the full, they might just make something up as to why they shouldn't touch a porcupine rather than getting down to the exact scientific reason. They're just putting it away and across for a child so that the child will
Yeah.
avoid the porcupine.
I think it's analogous. I don't think it means you have to say something that's untrue. Um, but it means, like you were saying about setting up at a shopping mall, something has to grab the attention. And let's say the most valuable thing you could give to someone is some higher level of awareness. It's not money or whatever else. But if you said in words a description of that level of awareness, they couldn't hear it. But if you told them, um, you know, there's a, I don't know, there's a, I don't know. I don't know what the, I'm trying to come up with a product in 10 seconds, but you'd have to reach them at some other level. Um,
So let me ask you this. If you're with your what you have going on with okay, you're trying to get certain products out, whether it's a course or a physical product or just some coaching on some level. If you think that there's a certain audience out there that you could reach and could help and you would feel good about that and that they're on TikTok, would you allow yourself to make certain TikTok videos like of copying certain trends of like right now I saw a trend about uh one gorilla fighting 100 men. Would you somehow hop on that trend? Because I remember when I first started, I read this book called 30 Days to a Better YouTube. And a part of it is, I think they called it tentpole programming, where if there's some topic that's trending that you can hop on that and use it to just gain a certain amount of that tension, getting it to sort of your inner circle. So would you feel, do you have any plans of sort of talking about trends or using the trends of TikTok to capture some audience?
that's a good question. I think um, my natural tendency is to want to not have to do anything like that. So but someone might say, well, that's why you've been a starving artist, because you just want to be so authentic and you just want to be so from the heart, that you won't do anything that feels, salesy. And I've worked in sales. I've done door-to-door sales, and I have nothing against persuasion if you're persuading someone to do something that's good for them. Um, but something it just feels kind of uninteresting to me to do that. Like it might be a smart decision. It might be a way to actually be helpful and deliver value. But I guess I sort of at least sort of secretly hope that I can really more stay true to my guns and write what I really want to write and do the podcasts and make my wood art and make courses and just try to um, reach people that way. But it's the internet, man. It's like we're going to be competing against increasingly more AI enhanced attention harvesting. So I'm not sure, but I like what you said earlier about not necessarily aiming for the massive audience, right? Like I want to have one-on-one calls with people. I want to meet people in the real world offline. but still utilize the internet to leverage all these things. Um, but yeah, I just want to reach people on a human level. And a lot of that digital noise does kind of just frustrate me. So I'm not too sure what the strategy is going to be. Right now, I'm
Well,
running.
where you so you're starting with this podcast. Can you like if someone's tuning into this podcast for the first time, what's I know you've explained it to me, but just for this conversation, what's the aim of this podcast?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in my stumbling through my intro, I guess I skipped a bit of describing my goal for it is talking to artists and creators about overcoming creative resistance. And that shows up in all kinds of ways. A lot of what we're talking about here is that trying to overcome all the resistance to figuring out what we want to create and having a consistent motive power behind that to not burn out because it's not too fake or so I think my main goal, like I could advertise that. Look, I want artists to I don't want artists to starve. I want to help artists do creative work that's fulfilling and profitable. So there's that level. I want artists to make money. I want you to be able to share your work, get over the fear and stop procrastinating, share your work and make money. But my deeper goal would be like you're getting a deeper satisfaction out of life by developing agency, creative agency over your life. So that's the goal. I want to talk to artists about developing agency
Hmm.
and how we do that.
So
And that
for
could,
me, how could you help me? Like I'll tell you, and we've talked about this many times in person, but also what you've asked what's changed from the past to now, where I guess in the past I would have thought that when it comes to say having a YouTube channel that you need to have a niche, and where I'm someone that I have all of these different ideas and topics that I would like to discuss and explore. And so a big part of it for me is dreaming, how I mentioned that dream earlier. I'm someone who I quite often have lucid dreams or what seem like quite deep and meaningful dreams. And I'd love to be in a place where I have the time to really there's certain practices I need to do on a daily basis in order to really connect with those dreams and then have the time to analyze them and then find a way to talk about them and share them and how to connect that with whether it's AI or the things that we're talking about today. I'm just to find a way to tie it all together and present it. So I guess I am somewhat blocked because part of I guess it just feels like, well, there's other parts of life that are in the way and you only have a certain amount of free time, but part of it is that I always delude myself into thinking that I'll eventually have a good solid amount of time to sit down and hammer it all out and have this perfect launching position, and then I'll just get started from there.
yeah, I fall prey to that a lot as well with a variety of things. Just habit change in general. I think it's easy to delude ourselves like that about how there's going to be more ideal conditions at some point. But if those more ideal conditions come along, they don't last anyways. So we sort of just always have to do it anyways. And life doesn't life doesn't get less busy for most of us over time, right? You're so I don't imagine you mind sharing about where you are now, location wise.
Well, I kind of from the beginning, so part of the reason why I stopped was I found it difficult to have this balance between living my life and sharing certain personal information. But at this point, yeah, because any future work that I do, this is something that is a part of what I'm trying to discover is do I stay anonymous? So if this video itself, let's say your podcast blows up and eventually this has 1 million views, I'm sort of, if you're putting yourself, yeah, I don't mind sharing where I am. I am in the South Pacific in Tonga, but part of the reason why I stopped was I just didn't, there's certain personal details. So like I'm just trying to find a way to not talk about family or friends. I'm more so just wanting to talk about I guess the that's what I want to find for future things that I make, is just making it about the ideas and less so to do with myself. That's where I got caught up before, was the videos and my personal life getting together and having this, trying to find this proper separation.
Yeah, yeah, that's a tough one. It's and yeah, for me, like I don't have um I don't know, I don't have like a family life at home that I care too much about keeping private or but I do have a bit of that concern about long term, like yeah, what do I actually want to be sharing online if it's a larger audience, especially? Not too sure. But Tonga for you, um, you know, that as a place to live was a big topic when you were doing sorting myself out early on because you were deciding where you wanted to live. You had already lived in Tonga for a time, and then you were back here, and you've lived back and forth a few times. Um, could you talk about um, what the pace of life is like there, and what the difference in culture is like, and what's drawn you to living there?
Hmm. Oh, there's so much. I guess what initially I couldn't even I really have to think about it, but compared to growing up in Canada, I guess I remember, so the town I grew up in Ontario, there was a lot of automotive manufacturers, and so that's what I saw a lot of people eventually doing, is getting up early. I remember going to the school bus and seeing uh, people driving out to work and just imagining them that, they have to drive to work and a big part of their paycheck goes into the vehicle that they've used to get to work, and just this. And then in high school, a lot of high school students had summer jobs at these manufacturing companies, and just seeing what it was like, and just sort of that cycle. And obviously I know that's not everyone, but it seemed like a big portion of the people of where I grew up worked in that type of industry, or if they weren't in it directly, maybe a lot of it was in the logistics. So it seemed all tied together. And then coming here, where it just seemed like people were happy with a lot less, and that they don't have those same work opportunities. So many people just have to do what they can to get by, and are happy with it. Where just seeing back home, I guess the more competitive nature and people comparing their lives, and seeing a lot more people that seem to be, even if they have a lot more, just seem to not be as happy. So that was definitely a big part of it, of wanting to initially move here. But yeah, the just pace of life of people, seems that people are much more easily able to relax and appreciate the daily life without having some future event or future state of being that they're trying to work towards.
Yeah. So you I mean it was a bold decision to move to such a faraway place with such a different lifestyle and um I think a lot of people never even consider that they can travel the world and explore different living possibilities and so that on its own I think represents a lot about your journey of kind of taking a hold of your own life and deciding okay, I don't want to be subjected to this same outcome I see for a lot of others. So so you found kind of an alternative. And to someone else, that life where it seems like there's kind of less options or less money making career options, that might seem like a life of less freedom and less agency. Um, but for you to make the decision to go there, you know, that that takes a lot of agency because for most people they would face a lot of resistance to a big decision like that, whether it's internal or external. Did you face a lot of external resistance making big choices like that?
Yeah, just more, I guess, on a personal level, just any big change you make in life, it's the people around you where it's going to have an effect on them, effect on you. But yeah, ultimately just weighing everything up, I just knew it was the right thing to do, and that's part of the reason why I really want to do well and be able to earn a better living is so that the things that happen when moving far away from friends and family will be less of an issue. Um, when I imagine a life of if I was able to earn the amount of money that I wanted to earn, it's not the luxury I think of. It's just one, being able to on a daily basis have the things that you put into your calendar being things that are good for you and things that will bring you a sense of fulfillment rather than selling your time to someone else to be able to make money that way. And just to make the world a little smaller, to be able to, it's not that I dream of vacations everywhere, but it would be able to be a world citizen and spend part of the year here and the other part there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That would be sound like that would be pretty ideal. Yeah, I think that even just with the creative path, like if someone wants to pursue a more creative career path, for example, um, I was really lucky. I had parents who really sort of encouraged whatever experimenting I wanted to do. Um, so although of course I'm as subjected to social conditioning as anyone, at least I didn't have to peel off a bunch of layers of like not being permitted to try new things. Whereas I think a lot of people who they would be talented artists, they kind of shove their art into a little corner of their life where it's playing it safe and no one's upset with them for not doing the standard thing they're supposed to do. Um, so that's one thing I would see you as like really exemplifying for other people is that you can investigate your own deeper motives and desires and find out like what does wealth actually mean to you aside from money, right? What do you want in your schedule? Um, so
Yeah,
what
exactly.
do you
That's
think about the
oh,
influence?
sorry. Can you finish
Well,
the question?
yeah, I was going to ask what do you think about you know on a more intentional level? What's the greatest influence you see yourself wanting to have on other people?
Wow. Yeah, I need to make that more clear for myself, but I'll try to answer it now. Hmm. If I think of what I would like to leave, when I think of the things that I want to do and that I keep pushing off into the future, like well, I want to explore the dreaming world because it's so interesting to me. And one thing that always irritated me was when I hear other people say things like, "Oh, well, that's just a dream," or "That's just your imagination." How it's downplayed. So I think I part of it would be to have them realize that it's not just a dream and that it's not just your imagination, that those for people to realize how important those things are and
Hmm.
that they're more than some people it's just so insignificant to some people, a dream. They think of it as nothing. Where that's, I guess, what I want to do is to discover, because even if it's Jung or Freud or whatever the current, there's so many theories of what dreams are, but I know I could explore how they can be of use to an individual.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad this topic has come up now. Because you've always I've always been interested when you share about your dream experiences. And since early on meeting you, you would talk about, dabbling with looking at different forms of magic, for example, or like the tarot, of course, and um, consciousness exploration in general was sort of a topic that came up, and visualization. So yeah, like you said, it's sort of overlooked by people. So what, there's these tools that are engaging with the symbolic realm. And of course, Peterson coming to fame around the time that we first met was a big introduction for a lot of people to thinkers like Jung, uh, who, he's pretty popular in certain movements, but he sort of has become repopularized. And yeah, what do you think these tools have taught you about the nature of your mind that most people would overlook?
Well, a common a common theme or event that has happened in my lucid dreams. And what I mean by lucid dreams is that I am aware, completely aware that I'm dreaming and I'm able to uh, be in control of the dreams. So often when I'm lucid in a dream, if if there are dream characters within the dream, they will attack me in some way, that they'll all run either it seems that they either run away or run towards me and attack me and try to hold me down. And I found that if I try any amount of effort in trying to fight them back or resist them, goes in the opposite way. It works against me. In order to be free of them, there has to be no doubt or hesitation in my mind. If I'm just truly aware that I'm a dream and that it's not, that they don't have any power over me, then I easily walk away from them or can just make them disappear with a snap. Or whether it's walking through a wall or disappearing through the floor, any effort that you put into it you'll immediately meet resistance and will not go through the wall.
Yeah, what
And
you resist
I've
persists.
tried to, yeah, I've tried, I've known that in my life as well. I, especially if I'm fresh, if I'm working on something and I'm frustrated, if I've lost something, that resistance that builds up always just makes things worse. I think that was your question, right? What have I learned from dreams that are applicable in waking life? That's probably the biggest lesson.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. I'd love to hear you round that out with some more detail sometime, because that really ties into our whole discussion about this word keeps coming up for me, agency, because it's in a lucid dream you have agency over your dream world that you don't when you're just unaware that you're dreaming. Um, and you're talking about in waking life when you want to create change or influence change, sometimes like the harder you push or the more you like tense up to try to make it happen, the more you're met with resistance. So sort of almost like a martial arts sort of thing. And whereas and sort of this would be a Taoist sort of approach, right? Is like effort through non or uh, effortless action, uh, action through non-action. Um, so there's lots to explore there about how do you relax your mind in a way that lets you um, go towards something intentionally, but without the type of striving that actually creates resistance. That's a very subtle thing.
Yeah, I remember there was this I think it was a Canadian television show. I think it was called Odyssey. It was about this boy that I think he fell out of his tree fort or something happened and he went into a coma. And then so the dream half of the show was him in this dream world that he was having during while being in a coma and trying to get out. And I've tried to find the scene on YouTube or on Google. I haven't been able to find it, but I remember in order for him to leave, he had a wall that was like a transparent but not fully transparent, where it's sort of like this cloudy wall. And they told him that you can only pass through the wall if at the time of going through the wall there are zero thoughts on your mind. And so it was that he had to take this action. But obviously, if you think, okay, I'm going to step through now, there's a thought that's on your mind. And it showed all these people that were frozen in the wall. Because if you had any thought, you would become frozen and stuck forever in this wall. And I think we might have even talked about Jiddu Krishnamurti before, where I can't sum it up perfectly, but it's something like any action that is a result of thought is corrupted and is not whole because thought is
It's
limited and
fragmented.
comes from knowledge, where knowledge is always living in the shadow of ignorance. So there's something where like it's taking an action that's not from thought. And so in the dream world, when I'm lucid, like I said, whether it's trying to go through a wall or fight someone, or even if there's something that I want to see in a dream, if I want to have something manifest in a dream, if there's any thought of like wanting it too much or thinking that it won't happen, then it's not going to happen or it's not quite the effect that you want. And I see it in myself when I'm sure this is a natural human feeling of scarcity. Like if I'm remember like being at a party and they put the food out or pizza's ordered for everyone. I have this initial thought of like, oh, I need to run up and get mine and make sure, because everyone's gonna take it. So that feeling, if it's crept into any creative aspect, I think that's stopping it right from the beginning. You have to be able to approach it from this place of no mind.
Yeah, yeah. Like that circle that the Zen painters draw. It's just like totally empty of mind. Yeah, how do you get to that place is the question, I guess, which to me, I guess that sounds a lot like mindfulness practice. It's probably one of the key things to just get in that present state where you're like able to enter flow. But
Yeah,
then
how do we do it? Because if we imagine the Buddha, if he was to be at this time, like would he have a YouTube channel to reach disciples? Like how would he pass on his teaching? And if he had a YouTube channel, like how would he be sitting there making thumbnails and titles and
no, he'd hire someone for that part. No, I don't know. I don't know, but something about his story did involve like staying in this realm to disseminate the Dharma, right? Not to just like disappear from it. Um, so yeah, like we're in this world where we have to take some kind of action. We're embodied, so we have to take action. Um, and so some of this conversation was about how a lot of that action is conditioned or kind of restrained by, what we've identified as what we're allowed to be, who we're allowed to be. And then there's the resistance um, in maybe it's like so it's like the type of effort that comes from not believing the result is going to come. Maybe that's what it is. It's like when you don't actually believe you're getting there, then the type of effort you're going to put in is like a frustrated effort or something, and then it's not as effective. But that sounds like that sounds like we're honing in on kind of a cool key insight, and I think I think as we keep having these talks, a lot of these topics we've discussed over the years will keep kind of circling in on things that evolve into clearer concepts. And
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I think both of us, what we want to do is cherish the time we have on this planet and make a positive impact and enjoy that playful process of creating change around us and for other people. And it should be fun, right? And it should be nourishing and meaningful. And um, so I'm pretty hopeful that that there's ways to continue devoting a lot of energy to that sort of path and be rewarded for it. Um, yeah, I think you and I are both on interesting journeys here, and I'd like to come visit you. So plan something with that. But
Yeah, me.
we should do another of these sometime. This is my first episode, so I feel like I'm sort of stumbling around, but at the same time, I think the things we've talked about are setting the stage for a lot of good things to come. So I like it.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm glad that you came on as my first guest because these topics, yeah, these topics are they seem so kind of broad, and yet I think we can see how it all does kind of circle in on, and even the topic of dreams, it just makes me think like really what you want to do is help people live their dream lives. You want to live your dream life as much as you can, and you want other people to live their dream lives, to find their dreams, right? To be even become aware of them in the first place. Um, so I think, yeah, I think that's sort of the key here is like um, finding out how do you make your life into a lucid dream, and yeah, how can you encourage other people to find out what that means for them? So
Well, I know we're wrapping up here, but you just gave me a thought, and this will be my last thought because you just gave me a good idea that like I've been trying to find out how to focus the type of videos I want to do. Maybe it could be about how I show how well we know what effect our daily life has on our dreams. Maybe the point of what I can do is figuring out what effect then could lucid dreaming, or at least being aware and analyzing our dreams, have on our daily life. So we know that and then we can see how they both affect each other
that'd be really cool. Yeah,
in
I
order to
miss
have your dream life.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll be excited to see how that evolves, man. Yeah, let's wrap up this one for now, and thanks so much, Andrew. Thanks anyone who listened and enjoyed this, and Andrew and I are both open to your feedback, and mainly me about where you think this podcast could go. And um, but thanks for bearing with me as I figure this out. So yeah, any closing words for me or listeners, Andrew?
Well, just for you, Jesse, yeah, thanks for having me on, and for your first podcast. I think you should be proud.
Thanks, man. All right, well, we'll do another one and we'll chat off the air soon. So